Basically, the motivation for this show is the testimony of the failure of the courts to obtain the best interests of children. Most all legal scholars agree that family courts are a virus in the blood they could do without. This failure has produced children with multiple negative effects and is visible in our society. Alienation, bitter fighting over money is a sideshow children do not need to witness. It's tough enough for kids to sustain the worsening of their state of being in the world, hence having to be compromised with yet another life adjustment. Divorcing in courts, getting it wrong over and over again, will be a black mark on the history and a stake against the legal system that will sustain without dignity. Sadly, we follow like lemmings into the next court appearance, the cliff we seem destined to fall from. Like that, Gary?
I like that. A lot of lemmings online going into the courtroom. That was good.
Okay, no one's judging the judges, and we have one particular judge we're going to get, like maybe Gary, maybe we'll all beat her up, I don't know. But this Bobby Seeback story, his father lost in an engagement with money and was jailed over the fact that he didn't have money to pay for a law guardian, if you can believe that. So, real quickly, as best as you can, Bobby, give us a minute or two of your situation that got you to the point, including, don't forget, the health issues.
Okay, basically, I started in 2007 in the court system when my wife filed for divorce. At that time, they appointed a law guardian who was really a children's attorney. There's a big difference between law guardian and children's attorney, because a children's attorney is just another attorney in the litigation. I have here a documentation where his bill was up to $4,000.
They're not going to be able to see that. Go ahead.
In just the first 2 months of litigation, where it hadn't even seen a courtroom for the most part. It was all telecommunications, and I had to pay it because I was awarded 100% of the children's attorney's fees.
Awarded to pay, or ordered it?
Yeah, I was ordered to pay it 100%, even though that usually they go through the parents and they find out who has what income, and they apportion.
They didn't use any base to determine the amount of money that was going to be charged, in other words, that you were ordered to pay. They didn't use any base of information.
Not for that,
Had
no.
they done that, they never would have awarded a dime, because you were earning so little money at that point.
Well, they could have apportioned 40% to me and 60% toward my ex, but they didn't do that. That's what the enumeration wound up being.
And that's what the income variation was at the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So being that it was a flat award of me to pay whatever the fees turned out to be, it's not something that you know is going to be, significant until you're in it. In the very end, those fees wound up being $26,000.
Right. So $26,000 legal fee is not even a child support fee, and most people that you went to jail, most people that go to
and not
jail,
even his lawyer's fees. This is his child's attorney.
This is a fee that a judge just tells you you have to pay.
Yeah, and you can see how much better your child turned out with all that money being piled on top of his shoulders. I mean, right? Where did that go? Yeah.
And pretty much they tell you that if you don't pay a certain amount, at one point I couldn't afford to pay anymore. And they said that it was a willful violation because they decided that I could pay a certain amount.
Which is impossible looking at the numbers.
Which is very impossible because I barely made that much in a year's time.
Right.
I'm
Gary,
on disability.
Let me stop there for a second. Before you get to his disability, I want to hear all about that. What's right and wrong with that? Is there anything right about that?
Well, the first thing is, there's always a problem with making somebody pay 100% of the fees. Because now what happens is his ex, or soon-to-be ex, she doesn't care. She got no skin in the game. Right. So she could just keep bringing the kids, racking up these bills. Go talk to your lawyer. Go talk to your lawyer. Go talk to your lawyer. They don't care because they're not paying. They can go on a letter. Listen, lawyers love letter writing campaigns, right? It's great, easy money. You write down a bullshit piece of letter. You send it off. You write something aggressive to upset the other party so that they have to write back and try to be a little bit more aggressive, and then they go back and forth at $350 every time they write one of these damn letters. So that's the first thing. Second of all, of course, they should have gone by the two of their incomes and maybe even not made either one of them pay. Another thing that comes to mind is the best interests of the children. Well, if this family has limited funds, which, I don't know if you're talking about the financials, but I saw the financials.
Right.
They clearly had limited funds.
Right.
Your disability money, and the wife made a little bit of money, but there was clearly limited funds. Taking this money and giving it to a third-party attorney,
This is not even part of
how is that their best interest? Because now you're taking money from the kids. If they each had $1 million or even $500,000, I'd say, all right, pissing away $20,000 isn't going to affect the kids' lives. But many of your viewers are watching and saying, hey, I don't have that money. Now you're taking that $26,000. That's money that the kids aren't going to have for school money, to eventually be in college. So that's certainly not in the kids' best interest.
I don't know of any, was it CPR, is that what it's called, that says anything like that. I don't know if
What's
anything
that?
exists.
No, they can do that. Sure.
And put somebody in jail.
No, that's different. From what I understand, the only way that you can go to jail is by child support. But what the judges, I'm sure, did in this case is, well, they know we can't put somebody in jail for money. Everybody knows there's no debtor's prison. Well, we're not going to put him in jail for the money, but we're going to put him in jail for violating my order to pay the money.
Yeah,
of course, it's the same.
It is.
Isn't it the same thing? But legally, this is their cushion is we're not putting him in jail for that. We're putting him in jail for violating our court orders. So, listen, they can do it. But what happened in this case was what I call a self-directed verdict. They set him up to fail because they knew what he had. They knew he couldn't pay it. And also, if he's not paying the bill, well, the judge can do whatever they want. They could, if you think he has more money, subpoena his bank account. And you could see if he has the money. I could see if he had $30,000 in the $30,000 in the bank and didn't pay it. Another thing that Bobby forgot to mention here, if you don't mind that I'll mention, is that the judge also awarded the law guardian to be paid $200 per hour. Now here is the goddamn scam of this. In family court, you don't pay for a law guardian. It's the state pays for it. You know how much they pay that same asshole law guardian in family court? $75 an hour.
I wasn't far off.
So the state can pay him $75
Right.
an hour. But when it's private pay, it's usually $150. I have no idea why she awarded $200. But how do you pay more than what the state pays? If that lawyer was willing to work for $75, I would say, hey, give me one of the jerks who will work for $75 an hour. One of these ambulance chasers who runs around.
Right.
It's totally unfair what they did. And this judge has a history of setting people up to fail to get them into
That's
jail.
what I wanted to
This
hear.
is not an unusual. She knew what was going to happen.
Now, we know about this because we've heard of other cases
I've got
from
tons of cases
her.
from Hope Schwartz
Right,
Zimmerman.
right.
I've had them on Long Island
And then they
Backstory.
more or
I've
less
met with
reflect
them.
the same type
They're
of
all
thing.
the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Sucking the money out of the person, setting them up to fail, and then putting them in jail for
I want to hear
not paying
what
it.
Bobby says about his health, because to me, when that judge made that decision, knowing his health, tell the people what your health was like at that time, then the judge made the decision to put you in jail. What else had happened to you right prior to that?
Basically, I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. I had Hodgkin's disease twice. All of that led to having my spleen, my appendix, and half of a lung removed. After that, I had a stem cell transplant, which killed the cancer, but it totally racked my immune system, and I had to have a heart transplant because it destroyed my heart. It enlarged it. So friends call me spare parts. After that, I had two knee replacements.
But where's the compassion?
And then the judge is going to look at this man and say, let's take his full amount of income he's made for the year and let's give it to a law guardian, a third party to the action.
Then put him in jail. Listen, we release people who are in jail for
God
murder.
almighty.
I think it was called there's a compassion program that if somebody's either very sick or terminally ill, even if they're in jail for murder, they can get released. Here you put a man in jail who's sick. He's not faking. I don't think he faked getting a heart transplant. I don't think he faked getting his spleen removed. I mean, it's ridiculous to suggest that.
Right.
You're telling me there was no other remedies available to this judge other than to put him in jail, put him in a bigger health risk. The best interest of the children at the time, you weren't alienated, I don't believe, at that time from your children. She was trying it
not at that point.
Right, so you're still seeing his twin boys. What's going to happen to that relationship when their father's in jail?
Yeah.
No, again, the best interest of the children?
Yeah,
how is that in the best interest of the children?
That's what I referred to in the opening.
That's the worst part of it.
One of the things, that is the worst part. That's what I was trying to tell you before the program started. The alienation of your kids is just like, it's so blatantly obvious what happened to you. It's incredible. But something else we don't know that we didn't really talk about yet. Before the divorce, he was the stay-at-home dad. primarily he has all these issues. He can't go out to work and get $100,000 salary to take care of a $26,000, 25% or 26% of his income. He was the one that was bringing the kids to the bus, right? You were the one that was feeding them. You was the one that's taking them home. He gets divorced, and suddenly he's not the custodial parent. He's now the non-custodial parent, which we all know is a class. Right. So you put this guy into a class, and he's got all these health problems. This judge should be sued for that.
Well, I think she
should be removed from the bench for making any kind of decision against him for that reason.
I think she has issues with men. Really, I do. I mean, I think she's biased against men. She just goes to destroy them. She's also a lazy-ass judge. I don't know if she's incompetent or stupid because she made it through law school, so I guess she can't be that stupid. But she's lazy. She doesn't read court papers. She has a history of not reading court papers. When you're putting somebody in jail and you're discussing incarceration, wouldn't you make damn sure that you know every detail of the case?
Yeah,
or at least listen to every... If you
I heard the minutes, she kept asking questions. Oh, are we doing this now? Are we doing that now? Like as if she had no idea what the case was all about.
I mean, we have another case that we're helping somebody who's facing incarceration in Suffolk County. I don't know if you want to say the judge's name. But this judge sits there and has let the person testify for hours and hours and hours. At the end of the day, he knows the case. And we're helping another guy at Americans for Legal Reform that the same judge went in thinking that this guy should go to jail. In fact, he put him in jail for 3 days. But then as time went on, he listened to the case for hours and hours and hours, and now he's changed his position because he heard the truth. This judge doesn't let anybody speak. She hates pro se litigants. She really does.
Yeah.
She violates their rules, steps all over them. As pro se, you don't know what to do because you don't know until it's too late. So she violates people's constitutional rights, and
she's taking advantage of people.
This man went to jail without ever having an attorney. Now, as far as I understand, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not bragging about that, no. But I'm not a lawyer. But from what I understand, everybody's entitled. If you're facing jail, you are entitled to a lawyer appointed to you.
He's supposed to be represented by somebody.
She should say to him, and even if he says no, I believe she has an obligation to explain to him, listen, you might not want it, but you have a constitutional right to have this attorney. And maybe it's a good idea that you do get it, but you have the right to not have it if you don't want. But usually, almost every judge that I've been in front of that really takes this job seriously explains to the person. Now, sometimes the people get annoyed because they don't understand, but I believe that it's the right thing to do.
Of course it is.
And especially in incarceration cases where you're facing incarceration, I have, except for this judge, Hope Zimmerman, I have always seen a judge appoint an attorney to the person. They don't want to be responsible for putting somebody in jail because you can't give the person who's pro se the benefit of the doubt.
There used to be a threshold for judges to make that final decision to put somebody in jail, that they had to accomplish a certain amount of rudimentary facts that pass through their eye. They have to know what's going on.
But there's two things now. From what I understand, there's two differences in Supreme Court.
I want to give him a chance.
Yeah, in Supreme Court, they have to find every remedy possible before they put you in jail.
That kind of thing.
Family court, they don't. They can just put you in jail if you can't pay. Now there's a presumption that everybody who has an order to pay has the ability to pay. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Because when you have a judge like this who's not looking at the real financials, he really doesn't have the ability to pay. What does he do? You may as well put him in jail the first day he walked in. Because she knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. It looked like he was set up. That's like you said before.
Oh, I was. Yes.
So what in the papers that you had that you wanted to add to? Like there was a case I think you were talking about that no one's allowed to.
One case that I had here, which is August Singer versus Hamlin, which says basically inside the wording that nobody in the United States can be locked up without representation.
Which is what happened.
For any kind of thing, whether it's civil or whether it's a criminal offense. Right. Unless they're offered either to have represented or unless they waive representation.
Right.
So what's happening to your situation? You just went to court just the other day, right? What happened at that time? That was just a day or so ago.
Well, this now, it's all up to the fact that my ex has violated 3 court orders, and she's doing that so I don't get to see my kids.
And there's alienation right now with your kids, right?
There's a fair amount of alienation because when you're pushed away from your kids' lives, even though you have an order for visitation, somebody's not facilitating that visitation or facilitating a relationship, it's very easy for that relationship to just dissolve.
Right. You said that basically it's been dissolving. Am I right?
Yes,
it's getting harder and harder to maintain, right?
The kids, when they know that you went to jail and they don't know why, they don't know it was because I didn't have enough money to pay the attorney that was assigned to them. I never had the opportunity to explain that to them. They were little kids. They were 8-year-old kids when all that stuff was going down.
Oh, they were twins, right?
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah. Okay.
And that all happened in 2009. One of the scariest parts of the whole thing was with a heart transplant, they just take you and they throw you in with the general population. You spend 72 hours in a cell, and at the very end of the hearing that we had, I had asked for my medication, which my life depends upon it. And they said, well, they'll have that because Nassau County is attached to a hospital or whatever. Well, they didn't. And I spent 3 days in a cell climbing the walls just from the withdrawals from the major transplant bed. And then they did finally get it. But here I am spending all this time worrying, is my heart going to reject? I spent over a year waiting. I spent all that time being sick.
I keep wanting to go back to
and
the
it's
judge.
just such mental abuse.
Sure.
It just really very simply
you
falls in between
You could have died.
cruel and inhuman treatment.
What
No
keeps
question
coming to
about
my
what
mind
could
is
have happened,
does
yeah.
the punishment fit the crime?
Yeah. I was going to say,
People do all these
I mean,
horrible things these days, and they don't go to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even what you did, even if it was willful, and you said, you know what, screw you, law guardian, I'm not paying you. You go to jail for that? Is that the punishment fitting the crime? Putting somebody's life in danger and putting them in jail, taking them from their kids?
He agreed to pay $100 for a while there.
I paid what I could for the amount of time I could. I borrowed some money from my mother.
I wouldn't have given the guy a dime.
But I had lost both my father and my younger brother in 2005. So my mom didn't have it to put out.
And the judge is known for telling people, borrow it from your family and friends. And I think, did she do that in your case too?
She did that in my case.
But to me, that's admitting that you don't have the... Listen, I know you don't have the money, Mr. Seeback. Borrow it from...
Yeah, I
who is
love
she
that.
To say for you to borrow it? If she's saying, I know you don't have it...
I couldn't believe
then
that she's...
the end of it.
I couldn't believe she said that in the papers. She actually, said in the testimony, in the
I've heard her
minutes,
say it before.
borrow the money.
In
other words, we know you don't have enough money.
Exactly, that's the end of it.
Go get it somewhere else.
I had to tell somebody else, I know she did in your case, she said, figure out where to get it. Now, what happens if you went out and held up a bank?
That's
and God forbid
almost what they're
somebody got
telling you to
killed?
do.
Because there was somebody in Nassau County 2 years ago who did rob a gas station because he couldn't pay his child support and was facing jail. Well, who's responsible for that?
That's right.
I say the judge got blood on her hands.
Well, we have a nightmare condition with child support in terms of how they deal with anything with reason. And because they are allowed to take money and allowed to confiscate your funds, you notice that we're not really engaged too much in the health and well-being of the children. We started that way. We talked about it a little bit. Where are they in all this discussion about the pain that they cause you to suffer, the possibility of killing you in jail if they didn't get the meds in time, about what they've done to you, and where are the kids in all this? Where are the kids in all this? What happens to the kids?
The kids are back home with mom, and they're supposed to be screened from all of this stuff happening. They're not supposed to know a thing. When I was in there, I had mailed them letters every other week, every other day. And since they were twins, I was able to send one to one child, and then the next day I would send it to the other child. But other than that, I basically told them that I was in camp, prison camp. But here these kids are spending their whole lives with you. You're the home parent. You're with them for 8 years of their lives, and all of a sudden you're just ripped away.
It's truly one of those rip-away type of deals.
And it's just...
all of a sudden you're a parent, and all of a sudden you're not.
Torture to them as well.
By no intelligence that I know of, should something like that have happened. And there's nothing we can do except to have this show about that particular judge who did that kind of thing. I mean, she should be thoroughly embarrassed. I hope she doesn't stay.
She's not, because she's a sociopath or a narcissist. Who else would do that? Would any person that has compassion?
Probably not, right.
She can't relate to other people. She can't have empathy.
She has no empathy
for other
right.
people. Because how would you do that to somebody?
You're probably right.
I know I'm right.
Yeah.
Am I ever wrong? I have enough.
No, but I'll remind you when you say it.
When there's a history of the same story, Bobby doesn't even know these other 4 men that I know. Never met them.
Right.
Never even talked about them with them.
Right.
But the story is
the same thing.
Come on. It's not that they just hate this man. This is her modus operandi.
When I looked at the minutes from that particular hearing, there was 10 pages in that minutes, 10 full pages.
Yes.
Lots and lots of conversation between the law guardian and the judge. He had, I think, 3 sentences.
Well, she kept cutting him off from what I read.
Yes.
She wouldn't let the man speak.
Yeah.
And he's, what is he going to do? He can't, a lawyer's got a big mouth, they're trained. They can keep saying, excuse me, Your Honor, I need a chance to speak. He can't do that because she'll put him in jail again.
Well, I did
and
ask.
He's intimidated. He's not a big guy who's, out. He's not aggressive.
But it didn't amount to any more than 1/4 of a page.
Right, because she didn't let him speak. I think he would have had a lot more to say.
Oh, he would have.
But she didn't let him speak.
What difference would it make? You're telling me it wouldn't have made a difference.
Wouldn't have made a difference.
Right.
No.
Well, actually, I had filed a motion to re-argue when she first shot down and told, when she first put the order for incarceration in, I asked to re-argue that. And in that re-argument, I mentioned that there had been a $450,000 residence that was a marital residence, and part of that was a dormer that was paid for with marital funds. And basically, if somebody doesn't put that on their net worth statement, it's a default.
That's fraud committed to the court.
Right. So right there, that could have been part of the money if I'd gotten anything from the residence. I got nothing in when
Equitable distribution.
Yeah, and I was actually ordered to pay $84,000 in my ex's legal fees. So they really made sure that I wouldn't have any money for anything. Right. And like you say, they set me up.
Which is really cruel and inhumane punishment, because if you take away somebody's every last dollar, where they literally, and I don't know if this is in your case, but I've seen it take away money where people have no money to eat, no money to hire an attorney, no money to live. They take
no,
away
but he really didn't have anything left. If he has any taxes at all to pay with that kind of income level, I'm not sure. And paying this guy that $400 a month, that's a couple of thousand by the time you get to the end of the year. If he's only bringing in $26,000 and it takes the whole year to make that,
right. So
what's
you're
left?
With no, isn't that
What's
cruelty?
left?
First of all, I don't think any court. I believe there's a law, but I'm not sure that they can't push you below the poverty level.
That's exactly right.
For example, that you can't take away if you get disability and you only get X amount of money, and in Suffolk County the poverty level is this dollar amount. They can't push you below that poverty level by taking away the money. But here, in this case, if she's ordering him to pay $26,000, and he makes $26,000, clearly he's being pushed below the poverty level.
It's called the self-support reserve.
So is that what it's called? Yeah, because I had heard that which makes sense, right? How could you know what? You have to lose sight of. You don't want to lose sight of the whole. All the man did was try to get divorced.
Yeah.
If he hadn't got divorced, he never would have gone to jail.
And since then, all he wanted to do was see his kids. So both of those things were completely wiped out.
We're not even talking about the fact yet that he didn't get custody, which maybe he should have, but he had no fair chance. This is even beyond that he can't even see his kids, has no money, went to jail. How crazy because of a divorce.
And his ill health, needs medication. God forbid something else happens to this guy and he needs additional medication. Where's he going to get that money?
I developed pneumonia.
Okay.
After that incarceration.
Look how fast that happened.
And was hospitalized 5 times with the pneumonia.
I know, it's a tragedy.
It's become a life-threatening thing now.
Let me just for a second ask Gary a question about maybe you might know him after you've been through this. The due process, the 14th Amendment, the 4th Amendment, you were talking about that. What was the illegals, before I get to you, what was the illegal search and seizure aspect that you were talking about regarding the 4th Amendment?
Well, part of it was removing me from my children's lives. That was, basically they seized the children and gave them to one parent.
I don't know if that would fall into the ability to, because you're talking about, well, anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry. Certainly in anyone's world, that would.
It basically is messing now with constitutional rights. And when you are incarcerated, your freedoms is compromised completely. And then when they do these other things, it's like they have destroyed my relationship with my children, which that's something I'll never get back.
During I don't know what your initial phases of the trials were like, but is that where you felt that the due process wasn't awarded you because you couldn't afford counsel early on, right? You were pro se.
What happened was I started off with a regular lawyer, and I paid him $5,000, and that went really fast. Then I got another lawyer, and I hired him through the Bar Association as a low-cost attorney at $75 an hour. By the time I got to this point in the case, since it had been drawn on for so long, I couldn't afford him anymore, and I started representing myself. I had asked J.H.O. Gartenstein, who was a judicial hearing officer on the case, if I could be screened to be appointed an attorney. Because by then I had gotten a little bit smart and learned that they have the same power in the Supreme Court to appoint an attorney when you can't afford one. Well, he was not willing to appoint me an attorney.
Willing?
He never screened me to do it, and I believe that he never screened me intentionally, so that I had no opportunity to prove that I didn't have the money.
Well, I think part of the reason that they don't do it is because, let's say you did screen and you were approved. Well, how can they order you to pay all this other money?
Exactly.
They've already determined that you don't have the money. Because somebody would say, well, why wouldn't they just appoint him a lawyer? What does this judge care? Well, because if they do, and then he screens and they go, wow, this guy has no ability to pay.
So they can't go further.
Let's give him a lawyer. Now he can go back into court and say, excuse me, Your Honor, you want me to pay my ex-wife's legal fees, you want me to pay my children's kids' legal fees, but I was just told by the other legal aid that I can't even afford my legal fees. So how can that be? Somebody's not right.
Yeah.
So that's why they just said, screw him, we won't even let him screen for one.
That's terrible. That's amazing.
But if he's facing jail, he's always entitled to it, no matter what. That's a separate issue. But that point, up until that point, when he wasn't facing jail, he wasn't necessarily constitutionally entitled to an attorney.
How you get to the facing of the jail could be set up. The setup we're talking about, could have been a problem from the beginning and may not have gotten you any.
I just don't think he knew it. I think he didn't know it was coming down the road.
Yeah, probably not.
Part of what they do is to try to keep you in the dark and to not tell you what the rules are. They make you try to figure out the rules. If your lawyer is not 100% behind you, which two of my lawyers were not 100% behind me, it makes it even more difficult because I filed for a downward modification of support at one point, and
I don't think she knows how to sign those.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was
it's not possible.
She ordered him to give certain paperwork to the other attorneys. He didn't give it to them, and it got dismissed because of that.
But again, so your rights should be violated, and that's sort of due process. Although yes, maybe your attorney did mess up, but if you're going to put a person in jail because their attorney messed up, which is first of all, you have a constitutional right to capable counsel, so you know that too. But they're willing to trample all over everything. What would have been the problem to say, you know what, Mr. Seeback, your lawyer didn't put it in. Put it in next week, and we're going to look at the case based on the merits.
There's no such thing as decency in that family court sometimes, and this judge obviously didn't do very much for you. Thank you very much for your time, Bobby Seeback, and thanks for your help, Gary Jacobs. You've been watching FIT TV, the program that brings you behind the scenes of our divorce culture. At FIT, you know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.